The gleaming halls of Earth's first interstellar embassy buzzed with activity as two tall, silver-skinned figures walked through the security checkpoint. Their long fingers carried data tablets, and their large purple eyes blinked in sync with the overhead lights. Lyra and Mel, sisters from the prestigious Stellar Coalition, had arrived for their first official meeting with humanity. "Remember," Lyra whispered to her younger sister, "these humans are new to space travel. We must be patient." Her voice had a musical quality, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Mel nodded, her antennae twitching slightly. "I read the reports. They've only had faster-than-light travel for 3 years. But their culture, it's so different from anything we've seen before." The sisters entered the meeting room where James Walker, Earth's cultural liaison, waited for them. He stood up from his chair, offering a warm smile. Unlike the sisters' tall, slender forms, James was shorter and had a solid build. His brown hair was neatly combed, and his blue suit looked freshly pressed. "Welcome to Earth," James said, bowing slightly. "I hope your journey was comfortable." The sisters returned the bow, having studied human customs thoroughly. "The journey was adequate," Lyra replied, her translator converting her musical language into English. "We are honored to represent the coalition." As they sat down, James noticed how the sisters moved with perfect coordination, a trait common to their species. He had been briefed about their race's highly evolved sense of taste and their society's approach to nutrition. Purely functional, focused on efficiency rather than enjoyment. "Before we begin the official meetings," James said, placing a small device on the table, "I thought we might discuss your dietary requirements. Our chefs want to ensure your comfort during your stay." Mel's antennae perked up. "We brought our own nutrient supplements. Our species requires specific chemical compositions for optimal function." James nodded, but there was a slight sparkle in his eyes. "Of course, but would you be interested in trying some human food? Just as a cultural exchange?" The sisters exchanged glances. In their society, eating was a private act, done quickly and efficiently. The idea of sharing this basic biological function seemed strange to them. "Is this common among humans?" Lyra asked, genuinely curious. "To share nutrition with others." James leaned forward, his enthusiasm evident. "Food is more than nutrition to us. It's about connection, culture, and sharing. Every region on Earth has its own unique dishes, each telling a story about the people who created them." Mel's purple eyes widened. "You mean you have multiple types of nutrition? Not standardized supplements?" "Thousands of different dishes," James replied, "each prepared differently, with various ingredients combined in unique ways." The sisters were silent for a moment, processing this information. Their species had evolved beyond the need for traditional food centuries ago, developing perfect nutrient supplements that provided everything their bodies needed. "This seems inefficient," Lyra said carefully, not wanting to offend. James laughed softly. "Oh, it absolutely is. But that's part of what makes it special. Would you be willing to try something, just as part of your diplomatic research?" The sisters communicated silently through subtle movements of their antennae, a private conversation in their native language. Finally, Lyra spoke. "We accept in the interest of cultural understanding. However, we must analyze any food for compatibility with our biology first." "Of course," James agreed, standing up. "I know just the thing to start with. Something simple but meaningful." As they left the meeting room, none of them realized that this simple agreement would change the course of interstellar relations forever. The sisters had no way of knowing that their decision to try human food would lead to one of the greatest discoveries in the history of space exploration. James walked slightly ahead of them, already planning which dish would be best to introduce them to human cuisine. Behind him, the sisters continued their private conversation, their antennae twitching rapidly as they discussed this strange human custom of sharing nutrition. The embassy staff watched curiously as the unusual trio made their way through the building. It was just another diplomatic meeting, they thought. But they were wrong. This was the beginning of something much bigger than anyone could have imagined. 3 weeks after their first meeting, Lyra and Mel sat in their temporary quarters at the embassy, reviewing their notes on human culture. The walls were decorated with earth art, a gesture of hospitality they found peculiar but intriguing. Their efficiency ratings are remarkably low, Mel noted, her fingers sliding across her data tablet. Yet they achieve results that defy our predictions. Lyra was about to respond when their communication device chimed. James Walker's holographic image appeared above their desk. "Good evening," he said, smiling warmly. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." The sisters straightened in their chairs. "Not at all," Lyra replied. "We were just analyzing human productivity patterns." James cleared his throat, seeming slightly nervous. "I have an unusual request. Would you both be willing to join me for dinner? Not at the embassy, but at my home." The sisters froze. In their culture, living spaces were deeply private, only shared with family units. To enter someone's home was an intimate gesture reserved for the closest relationships. "Your personal dwelling?" Mel asked, her antennae twitching with surprise. "Yes," James nodded. "I've been thinking about our discussions on human culture. The best way to understand us isn't through reports and meetings. It's through experiencing how we really live." Lyra's purple eyes narrowed slightly. "This is not a standard diplomatic procedure." "No," James agreed. "It's just a simple dinner invitation. No cameras, no reporters, no official records, just a chance to experience human culture firsthand." The sisters engaged in their private antenna language discussion. Their movements were quick and agitated, showing their uncertainty about this unprecedented situation. "What would this involve?" Lyra finally asked. James's face lit up. "I would cook a traditional meal, something my grandmother taught me to make. You could observe the preparation process if you're interested. It would be just us, no other guests." "Cook?" Mel leaned forward. "You mean you personally assemble the nutrition?" "That's right. Most humans prepare their own food, at least sometimes. It's a skill passed down through generations." The sisters found this concept fascinating and slightly alarming. In their society, the idea of manually preparing nutrition would be considered primitive, possibly even dangerous. "We will need to scan any substances for compatibility," Lyra stated firmly. "Of course," James agreed quickly. "I'll provide a complete list of ingredients in advance. You can run any tests you need." "And this is normal?" Mel asked. "Humans regularly invite others to their dwellings for nutrition consumption." James couldn't help but smile at their formal language. "Yes, it's very normal. Having friends over for dinner is one of our oldest social customs." The sisters had another quick antenna discussion. They had read about human friendship, but hadn't expected to encounter it in their diplomatic mission. "We accept," Lyra announced finally, "for research purposes." "Wonderful," James beamed. "Would tomorrow evening work? Around 1800 hours. After confirming the details and ending the call, the sisters sat in silence for a moment. "This could be valuable data," Mel suggested. "No other coalition diplomat has observed humans in their natural habitat." Lyra nodded slowly. "True, but we must be careful. Humans are unpredictable." They spent the next hour updating their reports, creating a new category for informal social interactions. Neither sister realized they were about to document something far more significant than social customs. In his own home, James was already planning the menu, pulling out his grandmother's old handwritten recipe book. He knew the sisters saw this as a research opportunity, but he hoped they might experience something more: the simple joy of sharing a meal with friends. As the Earth's sun set, casting long shadows through the embassy windows, two species prepared for an encounter that would challenge everything they thought they knew about each other. The sisters ran compatibility tests on common Earth ingredients, while James checked his kitchen supplies, both sides unaware that tomorrow's simple dinner would change the course of interstellar relations forever. James's kitchen bustled with activity as he moved between counter and stove, the afternoon sun streaming through his apartment windows. The clock showed 1600 hours, 2 hours before his alien guests would arrive. The ingredients for his grandmother's lasagna lay spread across the counter: pasta sheets, fresh tomatoes, herbs, ground beef, and various cheeses. A soft chime announced the arrival of his visitors. James checked his watch, surprised. "You're early," he called out, walking to the door. The sisters stood in the hallway, their silver skin reflecting the corridor lights. They carried several scanning devices and wore what appeared to be protective suits over their usual attire. "We calculated additional time would be needed for safety protocols," Lyra explained, her purple eyes fixed on the cooking equipment visible behind James. "And for proper documentation," Mel added, already activating one of her scanners. James welcomed them in, trying not to laugh at their serious approach to a simple dinner invitation. "Would you like to watch the cooking process?" The sisters moved cautiously into the kitchen, their antennae twitching as they analyzed the various smells. Their scanners hummed continuously, measuring everything from temperature to atomic composition. "These items," Lyra gestured to the ingredients, "they're all separate components." "Yes," James began to explain, washing his hands. "We'll combine them in layers. It's like building something, but with food." Mel recorded every movement as James started preparing the meat sauce. The sisters' expressions shifted from scientific curiosity to something close to alarm when he began chopping onions. "You're destroying the cellular structure," Mel exclaimed, her scanner beeping rapidly. James nodded, continuing to chop. "That's right. It releases the flavors and makes them blend better with other ingredients." "Blend flavors." Lyra's antennae drooped slightly in confusion. "You deliberately mixed different taste signatures." As James added the chopped onions to the heating pan, both sisters stepped back at the sizzling sound. The aroma of cooking onions and garlic filled the kitchen, causing their scanning devices to work overtime. "The chemical reactions are creating new compounds," Mel observed, fascinated despite her initial shock. James stirred the pan, adding the ground beef. "That's part of the magic of cooking. Everything transforms and comes together to create something new." The sisters watched in silent amazement as James layered the lasagna. Their scanners recorded every step: the careful placement of pasta sheets, the spreading of sauce, the sprinkling of cheese. To them, it looked like a complex engineering project. "The time investment is significant," Lyra noted, checking her data. "We've been observing for 84 minutes, and the nutrition is not yet ready for consumption." James slid the lasagna into the oven. "Good things take time. My grandmother used to say that patience is a secret ingredient in every great meal." "Your grandmother transmitted this knowledge to you directly?" Mel asked, recording this detail. "Not through educational databases." "She taught me in this very kitchen," James smiled, remembering. Sometimes we'd spend whole days cooking together. The sisters exchanged glances, their antennae moving in their private communication. The concept of spending excessive time on nutrition preparation as a bonding activity was entirely foreign to them. As the lasagna baked, filling the apartment with rich aromas, James noticed the sisters' scanning devices working less frantically. Their initial anxiety about safety seemed to be fading, replaced by genuine curiosity. "The thermal application is causing significant molecular changes," Mel reported, her voice containing a hint of excitement. "The aroma particles are unlike anything in our database," Lyra added, her usual formal tone softening slightly. James busied himself setting the table, placing 3 plates in a triangle formation. The sisters observed this ritual with interest, their scanners documenting every detail of the table arrangement. The oven timer chimed, making both sisters jump slightly. As James pulled out the bubbling golden-brown lasagna, he noticed their antennae moving in what he now recognized as their expression of intense interest. None of them knew it yet, but the real revelations would begin when they finally sat down to eat. Steam rose from the perfectly cut squares of lasagna as James placed them on each plate. The sisters sat stiffly at the dining table, their scanners still quietly humming as they analyzed the food before them. "All tests indicate it's compatible with our biology," Lyra announced, though her antennae quivered with uncertainty. James sat down across from them, trying to hide his anticipation. "Just take small bites at first," he suggested. "Your species has more sensitive taste buds than humans." Mel looked at the fork James had provided, then carefully lifted a tiny portion of the lasagna. Her scanner beeped one final time before she took the bite. What happened next would be recorded in diplomatic history. The moment the food touched Mel's tongue, her purple eyes widened to twice their normal size. The fork clattered to the plate as her antennae shot straight up, a reaction James had never seen before. "Sister," Lyra reached for her in alarm. "Are you?" But before she could finish, Mel made a sound that her translator couldn't process. It was like musical notes played on an unknown instrument. There's something else in this food," Mel finally managed to say. "Something our scanners didn't detect." James leaned forward, concerned. "Is everything all right?" "The flavor components are expected," Mel continued, her voice trembling slightly. "But there's an energy, a resonance. I can't explain it scientifically." Lyra, now deeply curious, took her own bite. Her reaction was equally dramatic. The usually composed diplomat gripped the edge of the table, her silver skin taking on a slight bluish tinge, their species equivalent of blushing. "This is impossible," Lyra whispered. "The emotional resonance. It's similar to our deep bond communications." James watched in fascination as the sisters experienced their first taste of home-cooked food. He had expected them to find it different from their nutrient supplements, but their reactions suggested something far more profound was happening. "When you prepared this," Mel asked, taking another small bite, "you said your grandmother taught you." James nodded. "Yes, we spent many happy hours cooking together." "Those memories," Lyra said slowly, her scientific mind struggling to process what she was experiencing. "They're here, in the food. We can taste them." "The love and care in the preparation," Mel added. "It has a measurable energy signature." "How did our scanners miss this?" The sisters began eating with more confidence now, their antennae swaying in what James recognized as their expression of pleasure. Between bites, they discussed rapidly in their private language, occasionally making notes on their devices. "In our society," Lyra explained, pausing to savor another bite, "we believe that nutrition was purely chemical. But this proves that food can carry emotional energy. The preparation method," Mel theorized, "the time invested, the personal connection to the recipe. They all contribute to an energy field our science hasn't discovered yet." James listened in amazement as the sisters began formulating theories about the psychological and emotional components of human cooking. What he had intended as a simple dinner had turned into a groundbreaking scientific discovery. "Is all human food like this?" Lyra asked, finishing her portion. "Not all," James admitted. "Fast food and mass-produced meals are different. But home-cooked food, made with care and attention, yes, that usually has something special about it." The sisters fell silent, processing this information. Their species had spent centuries perfecting nutrient delivery systems, never realizing they had engineered out something vital in the process. "We must document this," Mel declared, her scientific enthusiasm breaking through her usual reserve. "This discovery could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies communication." As they continued their meal, the formal diplomatic atmosphere had completely dissolved. The sisters asked questions about cooking techniques, family recipes, and the human custom of sharing meals. Their scanners lay forgotten on the table, replaced by genuine curiosity and wonder. In that moment, over a simple plate of lasagna, the gap between two civilizations began to close, one bite at a time. News spread through the Stellar Coalition's central hub like wildfire. The preliminary report filed by Lyra and Mel about their discovery of emotional energy in human food caused an unprecedented stir among the scientific community. 1 month after the historic dinner, the sisters stood before the Coalition's High Council, their silver skin gleaming under the chamber's crystalline lights. Hundreds of different alien species filled the circular chamber, all eager to hear about this revolutionary discovery. Our initial scans missed it entirely, Lyra explained, projecting holographic data into the center of the chamber. Human food contains trace elements of psychic resonance, imparted during preparation. Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. A blue-skinned counselor raised his tentacle. Are you suggesting that humans unconsciously manipulate energy fields while preparing nutrition? Exactly. Mel stepped forward, her antennae moving confidently. What they call cooking with love is actually a measurable transfer of emotional energy into their food. The chamber erupted in discussions. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive now leaned forward with intense interest. The implications were staggering. Back on Earth, James found himself suddenly at the center of an interstellar culinary revolution. His apartment kitchen, where the discovery had been made, was now classified as a site of scientific importance. I still can't believe my grandmother's lasagna caused all this, he said to Lyra, as they watched another group of alien scientists scan his cooking equipment. Your grandmother's recipe did more than that, Lyra replied, her voice carrying a new warmth. It proved that our species has been missing a fundamental aspect of nutrition for centuries. The effects rippled across human society as well. Restaurants worldwide began receiving reservations from alien diplomats eager to experience emotional resonance in food. Small family diners found themselves hosting distinguished alien scientists, all scanning and sampling traditional dishes with intense curiosity. A particularly amusing incident occurred when a group of Coalition researchers spent 3 days analyzing a simple batch of chocolate chip cookies made by a grandmother in Ohio. Their conclusions, stating that the cookies contained unprecedented levels of affection-based energy, made headlines across Earth and Coalition space. We've been focusing on the wrong things, Mel testified before another Coalition committee. Humans haven't just mastered space travel. They've been unconsciously manipulating energy fields in their daily lives through these recipes they passed down through generations. The scientific implications were enormous. Coalition laboratories began developing new scanning equipment specifically designed to detect and measure what they termed culinary emotional resonance. Early results suggested that different cooking methods and the cook's emotional state significantly affected the energy patterns in the food. Human cooking schools suddenly found themselves hosting alien students. The sight of tall, silver-skinned beings carefully learning to knead bread or stir soup became increasingly common. Each alien student was equipped with both traditional cooking tools and advanced scanning devices, studying both the physical and emotional aspects of food preparation. The most fascinating aspect, Lyra reported to the Coalition Science Directory, is that humans have been doing this instinctively. They developed customs around shared meals because they unconsciously recognized the emotional energy transfer occurring during food preparation and consumption. James's grandmother's recipe book was carefully scanned and archived in the Coalition's central database, alongside complex scientific formulae and faster-than-light drive specifications. The simple handwritten notes, complete with food stains and margin doodles, were now considered valuable scientific documents. Trade agreements between Earth and Coalition worlds began including clauses about culinary exchange programs. Human chefs found themselves with new job titles like Emotional Energy Culinary Specialist and Psychic Resonance Food Preparation Expert. As Lyra and Mel prepared to publish their comprehensive report on human cuisine, they received an invitation from James for another dinner. This time, they didn't bring any scanners. Sometimes, Mel said to her sister as they walked to James's apartment, the most important discoveries come from the simplest things. Lyra nodded, her antennae swaying gently. Who would have thought that human food would change our understanding of the universe? The sisters had no way of knowing that this was just the beginning. The simple act of sharing a meal was about to transform interstellar relations in ways no one could have predicted. 6 months after the initial discovery, Earth's first interstellar restaurant opened in Geneva, right next to the main diplomatic quarter. The establishment, named First Contact, became the most sought-after destination for alien diplomats and scientists across the galaxy. Inside the restaurant's busy kitchen, James watched as human chefs worked alongside alien culinary students. The scene would have seemed impossible just a year ago. Silver-skinned beings carefully learning to make pasta, tentacled creatures delicately chopping vegetables, and floating gas-based life forms studying the art of sauce reduction. The emotional resonance readings are strongest during the kneading process, Mel explained to a group of visiting scientists while demonstrating how to make bread. Her antennae swayed rhythmically as she worked the dough. The physical connection between cook and food creates unique energy patterns. Research stations have been set up in kitchens across Earth, studying the phenomenon that humans had taken for granted for millennia. The coalition's top scientists confirmed what grandmothers had always known. Food made with love really was different. We've identified 7 distinct emotional energy signatures in human cooking, Lyra announced during a packed conference at the Coalition Science Academy. Each corresponds to different preparation methods and the cook's emotional state. The scientific community was particularly fascinated by the discovery that different human cultures produced distinct emotional resonance patterns in their traditional dishes. Italian pasta carried different energy signatures than Indian curries or Japanese sushi, each reflecting centuries of cultural and emotional investment in food preparation. James found himself promoted to Chief Interspecies Culinary Relations Officer, a position that hadn't existed before. He spent his days helping alien visitors understand the cultural significance behind human cooking methods. "No, you can't rush it," he explained to a group of efficiency-minded alien chefs. "The time invested is part of what creates the emotional resonance. Quick cooking methods don't produce the same energy patterns." The implications extended far beyond cooking. Coalition scientists began detecting similar emotional energy patterns in other human activities: crafting, art, music. It seemed humans had been unconsciously manipulating energy fields through multiple forms of creative expression. One afternoon, as James demonstrated his grandmother's lasagna recipe to a group of alien diplomats, he noticed something remarkable. The aliens' natural emotional barriers, famous throughout the galaxy, began to lower as they cooked together. "It's like the food preparation creates a shared emotional field," one diplomat noted, their tentacles gently stirring a pot of sauce. "We're experiencing emotions collectively, across species barriers." Restaurants became the new centers of diplomatic negotiations. Coalition members found it harder to maintain hostile positions while sharing a well-prepared meal. The phrase, "let's discuss this over dinner," took on new significance in interstellar relations. Lyra and Mel established the first emotional culinary academy in Coalition space, with branches quickly spreading across multiple systems. The curriculum combined traditional human cooking techniques with advanced energy field studies. "We're not just teaching cooking," Lyra explained during the academy's opening ceremony. "We're teaching connection, understanding, the human way of turning simple nutrition into something more." The sisters' research revealed something even more extraordinary. The emotional resonance in food could be enhanced through conscious effort. Human chefs began training to deliberately infuse their cooking with positive emotional energy, creating dishes with specific therapeutic properties. Imagine, Mel told a gathering of coalition medical experts, treatments that combine traditional medicine with emotionally enhanced nutrition. "We're just beginning to understand the possibilities." James watched all this from his kitchen, still making his grandmother's recipes. Sometimes, when alien dignitaries asked for his secret, he would smile and say, "The most important ingredient isn't in any cookbook." The revolution wasn't just about food anymore. It had become about rediscovering something that humans had known instinctively but had never been able to prove scientifically: the power of putting care, attention, and love into what you create. As evening fell over Geneva, the lights of First Contact restaurant glowed warmly. Inside, beings from across the galaxy shared meals and stories, their different forms and colors blending together in the soft light. Above each table, sensitive instruments recorded the gentle pulse of emotional energy that flowed through the food, through the diners, and into the fabric of a changing universe. 5 years had passed since that first dinner in James's apartment. The small kitchen where it all began had been preserved as a historical site, complete with the original cooking implements that had witnessed the groundbreaking discovery. In the grand hall of the Coalition's Central Embassy on Earth, Lyra and Mel stood before a gathered crowd of humans and aliens. The sisters' silver skin had taken on a slight golden tinge, a mark of their extensive time spent on Earth. "The Walker Protocol," Lyra announced, gesturing to James, who sat in the front row, "has become the foundation of modern interspecies diplomacy. What began as a simple dinner invitation has transformed our understanding of emotional energy transfer." The protocol, named after James, had become standard practice in diplomatic relations. No major interstellar negotiation began without a shared meal, prepared according to the emotional resonance guidelines that the sisters had helped develop. "Our initial discovery was just the beginning," Mel continued, activating a holographic display. "Human cuisine has led us to identify 17 distinct forms of emotional energy transfer, present not just in food, but in all forms of human creative expression." The scientific community had been revolutionized. Research centers across the galaxy now studied what they called the human effect, the unconscious ability to infuse ordinary matter with emotional energy. What humans had dismissed as mere sentiment turned out to be a quantifiable force. James, now serving as Earth's chief ambassador to the Coalition, remembered that first nervous dinner with a smile. His grandmother's lasagna recipe was now part of the official diplomatic training curriculum, taught alongside interstellar law and sonobiology. The most significant impact, Lyra explained, has been in conflict resolution. When species share emotionally resonant food, their capacity for empathy increases by measurable degrees. Statistics showed a 60% decrease in interstellar conflicts since the implementation of the Walker Protocol. It turned out that it was much harder to maintain hostile positions while sharing a meal infused with positive emotional energy. In kitchens across Earth and Coalition space, new traditions were being born. Alien children learned to cook alongside human children, their different appendages working together to create dishes that carried emotional signatures from multiple species. "We've discovered that emotional resonance can be layered," Mel demonstrated, showing scanner readings from a recent diplomatic dinner. When beings from different species cook together, they create unique emotional patterns never seen before. The implications extended far beyond diplomacy. Medical research had shown that food prepared with positive emotional energy had measurable healing properties. Hospitals throughout Coalition space now included specialized kitchens where trained emotional culinary therapists prepared meals as part of treatment programs. James stood to address the gathering, holding up his grandmother's old recipe book. "My grandmother used to say that food made with love tastes better. Now we know why. What she felt intuitively, we can now measure and understand." The book had been studied extensively, its food stains and handwritten notes analyzed for emotional residue. Scientists had discovered that even the physical cookbook carried traces of emotional energy from years of use. "The Walker Protocol isn't just about food," Lyra concluded. "It's about understanding that emotions are a fundamental force in the universe, as real as gravity or electromagnetism. Humans have been unconsciously manipulating this force throughout their history." As the ceremony concluded, attendees moved to the adjacent dining hall, where dishes from 100 worlds waited. Each plate carried its own emotional signature, a testament to the care and attention of its preparation. The sisters found James at a quiet table, sharing a plate of lasagna made from his grandmother's recipe. No scanners were needed now. They could feel the emotional resonance through their enhanced understanding of human cuisine. "Did you ever imagine," James asked, "that dinner invitation would lead to all this?" Mel's antennae swayed gently. Sometimes the biggest discoveries come from the smallest gestures. And sometimes, Lara added, taking a bite of the lasagna, a simple meal really can change everything. Above them, Earth's night sky filled with the lights of visiting ships from across the galaxy, all carrying beings drawn to this small planet where food was more than just nutrition. It was a bridge between worlds, a carrier of emotions, and a reminder that in the vast universe, the simple act of sharing a meal could transform everything.